Hey, good evening, everyone. So tonight I was going to do a demonstration of the phase three of the style library with the new font capabilities, and I've asked a lot of the font makers that I've been speaking with to join us. But obviously, anybody interested in the upcoming library is obviously welcome to be on board. If you have any questions, either font makers or anyone, put them in the chat. I'm going to try to do a little bit of explanation and then do a little Q&A, and we'll see how long this runs. If I can get all the questions answered, maybe it'll be a short run. If there's a lot of questions or a lot of things to go over, I'll kind of play it by ear in terms of time. Let's see. I see Jay DeLorean. I see Mountain Sabers. Hey, Chet Osborne. For those who haven't seen, phase two of the library is up, and I actually immediately started working on phase three. So I've had all these kind of ideas in my head for a long time since, been working on OS 6. I've been slowly putting the pieces together, obviously, between the site and the styles and everything. But one of the pieces that I've kind of been going after for a long time is, helping both users and font makers get the sounds and styles lined up. And hopefully everybody can hear me actually. I didn't even do an audio test earlier, so if you see my lips moving and not hearing any sound, um, let me know in the chat. Let's see, we got a bunch of people coming in. What do I got? MCS Studios, Cole Weathers, Nick, Takeo. I'm gonna assume you guys are hearing me. I should have done an audio test earlier. Um, Cool. Thanks, Zarabin. Yeah, usually I get on a few minutes early, but I was helping out with the kids. All right, cool. So lost my train of thought. So what I'm trying to do is the work with font makers to actually have the fonts represented, at least in a kind of a sample setup um, on the library, both so that it's easier for people to match the styles up, but also to, when there are, I get a lot of questions, particularly styles that, have specific fonts that I do when I do my demos of where I got the font or who I recommend and all that. And to be honest, a lot of these fonts I picked up a long time ago and I just use them when I come across them. And I have different fonts I use on different sabers, so it's also dependent on the saber I'm testing, and I can lose track. And there's, a good amount of font makers. A lot of them everybody knows. Some of them are, people maybe haven't had exposure to. So I wanted to make it a little easier for that because the styles in the library and fonts are two sides of the same coin. You can't have your saber really if you don't have one and the other. And there's actually some other stuff planned for future phases to kind of take this to the next level, but this is going to be the starting point. So if you didn't see the kind of sneak peek video that I had put out, I'm going to walk through that, and then I'm going to kind of explain stuff, and then I'll try to take some questions from the chat. And if I missed anyone coming in, oh, Max is on. If I miss you, if I don't call you by name, it's not on purpose. I have to look at one screen for the chat and another screen to use the demo. So let me get us over into this demo. And again, all right. So phase two of the library did introduce the previewer, which this uses the code from Frederick's Style Library. So you can actually get previews of your blade styles as you build them. Obviously, all the color changing. So if you want to see what a specific color looks like related to a style, if you want to change and see what other styles maybe look like, you can check out different styles and you can see what they're going to look like in the various colors. So you can really get like a pretty significant preview of what you're actually going to build and put into your config. In addition, you're able to obviously swap out ignition effects if you wanted to change the effect. You can have all kinds of different things. If you want to change timings, so like a cycle up, usually you want for longer. So you can see what that will look like. And all of these things are involved when you're developing the styles you're going to put on your config. But the other piece of the puzzle has always been fonts. So what I wanted to do was make it so that at least again, this is going to be sample. This is going to be preview type stuff. We're not going to put full fonts obviously in the library. But what I did as a starting point is I put the open source ones, so the free ones. And I think my screen is big enough for you guys. I'm going to try to enlarge this because I know some people can't read when I have it really zoomed out. So this is going to throw the layout off on my monitor, but hopefully this makes it easier. So what I've done now is coming in phase three, which I hope to be launching in the near future, is the ability for these sound controls. So if I check this sound box here, and I make it off by default, just for those of you who maybe are checking this out in work and don't necessarily want to blow your, all of a sudden have sounds jump on, you can turn on sound. And why do I not have audio? Really should have done the test. I don't know if you guys are hearing the audio. Let me see if I change this. Really? All right, 1 second, having some technical difficulties. That was just working before. Let me put on my, let's take you off screen. Hang on. Gonna just go to me for a second. Let's see what's happening over here. Okay. Sorry about that. It was working earlier. Share screen. Allow audio. All right, audio's active. All right, let's give this a try. One more time. That should have done it. Let's see if we hear it. How do I not hear sound? That is weird. All right. Oh, it was working? You guys can hear it? Oh, it must be because I'm in. All right, so I'm going to go on the assumption you're hearing different sounds. That's probably what it is, because I am actually presenting, so I probably can't hear the sound while presenting. So I'm going to go by the chat. You guys can actually hear the font. I can't hear it, so if it stops working, just drop it in the chat. So the idea being you can actually toggle through the different sounds. I'm flying deaf here just because the sound doesn't play for me. It was playing for me before I went live, so that's probably what it is. But you can obviously, these are the free ones. But what I wanted to do is obviously give a representation to all possible fonts. Now, obviously within scale. So one of the things I've been discussing with the font makers, or those of you who are on already know this, is getting samples and adding them into the library so that it's something that every user has access to, both so that they can kind of get a little preview, but then also so they can make decisions on style. So if I have a, I'm going to start with the free ones just because it's easy for me to handle them, but I do have some samples that you guys have sent me built in. I haven't gotten to all of them yet. But say this style I'm trying to match up with this particular font. I get to preview it, hear it, see what it looks like. If I want to see maybe what it looks like in a different color, let me change the, I'm going to change the ignition time back. I'm going to change to, maybe we'll just do a spark tip ignition. And you can actually, test your ins and your outs. So you're in, you're out. I can test my clashes, glass, I can test lockup. And now lockup, drag, lightning block, and melt in the previewer is going to test, play all the same sound just because we're limiting the sounds that can be. We can actually also have swing sounds. And it's as long as you hold the button, it's going to keep playing an accent swing. But that's kind of the general idea there. But then on top of that is if you wanted to say, let's do a little bit deeper color. If I wanted to say, okay, I like this style kind of with this font, but let me try a different style with that and just see what it's going to look like. So maybe we'll grab the Ronin. And I can see what that one's going to play like. And just to let you kind of be able to pick and choose and say, all right, this is going to be for this preset. This is the style I want to run. I can find my color. I can find my everything I want and test it out. Now, on top of the free ones, I'm starting to build, and this is where I'm working with the individual font makers. Let's see, this doesn't have a matched font. Let me find the style that I did build a match for. So like I have Audio Flicker built with a match. So the idea is obviously the free ones are free. They come with your Proffieboard. But what I want to get is, say I want to see what matches to this. And this is where I'm working with the font makers, which is one of the things I wanted to show, particularly the font makers who are on tonight or anybody who catches this later, is the idea of the match fonts is the fonts that is the styles that you envision in your head or that you want that you think work perfect or work well with your particular fonts. Now, I know some people design their own fonts or design their own styles to go with fonts, but these are styles in the library that match up well with your fonts. And I'm working with you guys to kind of line that up. So this one I set up a couple of tests. So if I choose matched font in the sound, I can actually find which fonts are currently matched up, and these are based on now. Mountain Savers is on. I don't think Harry Solo Fonts was on tonight. He wasn't able to make it. But what I did was I worked with Mountain Savers, and I said, okay, which test sounds do you want to put in, and or which match styles do you want? So now we've got, this is the Vader TIE Fighter. It's the Father's Ride for Mountain Savers. So I'm going to demo that one for you. And again, I can't tell if the sound is playing, so I'm assuming it's working because it was working already. But if I want to see what that sound looks like, if I want to try Luke X-Wing, I can see how that's going to match up. If I want to see, this is an Angelic Plasma. So it allows you to see the style, see the sound, and test them out. And then there was one more, I think. And these match ones are based on what the font makers tell me. On top of that, say you want to try just something different. We also have the ability, I'm categorizing the paid fonts. And again, this is going to be working with the font makers. And these are going to be categorized by a category. Now, obviously, font makers, some have their own sites, some use different sites, some have different categories. So I'm kind of trying to find just a good, acceptable, universal categorization that makes sense. So this is just kind of the starting point. But I've got oh, you guys can't see the drop downs when I'm clicking them. So you'll have to take my word for it. But all right, so when it's in paid fonts, like right now I've got the films OT, films prequels, film sequels, animated series, live action, Star Wars video games, Star Wars Legends, other Star Wars, sci-fi out of universe, fantasy out of universe, superhero out of universe, anime out of universe, cartoons out of universe, video games out of universe, and right now just other, which is a catch-all. And there's only a few built in because I'm still working with the font makers. But if I go to say a sci-fi out of universe, and then I'm going to get my drop down for what's available there and built in, and you guys can't see these till I click them. But this is Mountain Sabers Godzilla Blast. So that one maybe isn't going to work so well here, which is why it wasn't listed in the matched font, but it doesn't mean you can't pick it up and match it. And then the other piece of this, so say you find the perfect font to go with the perfect style, the perfect color and all that, you want to get a hold of the font, obviously, you're going to be able to click this little guy here to get your font. And this will go to the location of the font maker, either their website or wherever they offer this font. So when we click here, I'm using Mountain Savers because he's one of the ones who gave me information to put in for testing. So I'm not picking favorites. It's more just what I've got set up so far. But if I click here now, I'm actually going to go out. And it's not showing you. This preview. I apologize. It jumped to his website to the exact page for that font. But because, I think it's because of how I'm displaying this. All right, so that one you'll have to take my word for also. It was working earlier. All right, but the idea being now to populate the library with all of the sound fonts that I can get, again, preview versions, and have them so that users can go in and check them and play with them, and mix and match, and also get some representation. So particularly, like one of the things that I'm doing, man, I want to fix that drop down. I think I know why it's not drop down. So you're going to see my face one more time, and I'm going to stop sharing this screen and see if I toggle this viewer to everything instead. I go for the whole system. I think it lets you see drop downs. It's going to create a really weird look for a second. And now you should get your drop downs showing. Go full screen here. All right, let me see if this fixed that so you can see. There we go. That's why it wasn't showing. So this is, yeah, okay. It was the view I had chosen. So, and these will change as I work with the font makers. What makes the most sense? So I'm trying to make it universal. Same thing with like the naming. So what I want to do is working with you guys, kind of get to the point where it's easier to find. So everybody, different font makers come up with different names for their fonts. But if they, particularly the character-based ones, like sometimes the naming is logical, but other times the naming is very specific or unique to that font maker, and it makes it hard to know, okay, is this a font for Luke? Is this a font for Obi-Wan or Yoda or whatever? So I'm making a universal naming language that essentially breaks down to the character's name as we know them. You know, wherever possible, I'm going to truncate it just so that I can fit everything. The film and/or specific. So in this case, right now, Mountain Sabers had sent me these two to set up. So this was his X-wing, and then obviously whoever makes it, and then their name that they actually use on the font, just so it's identifiable. And you get that able to be seen. And then this was where it didn't work earlier because of the screen view. If I click here, it's going to take me out to that actual font, and I can come on Mountain Sabers webpage. I can get a hold of this font that way. So that's going to be how that all works. And same thing with the matched fonts. You guys couldn't see it earlier, but this would be the matched fonts that, according to working with the font makers, that they said would work. This was just an audio flicker. So this is, I'm setting up the basic ones first, but I can also go, now I can show everything better. So if I want to look at, say, one of my other, you know, more unique kind of styles, this is an unstable pulse. Let's put that into like a red. And then you wanted to say match it up with a different font. Now this one doesn't have a font matched yet, but I can go into the paid fonts and we can find, that's the OT. I think there was one in here under other that we built. Yeah, so we can match it up to this. Again, I can't hear the sound. So if the sound isn't playing it's supposed to be, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties because that's how this kind of stuff works when you want to show something. But I'm assuming you're hearing the different font as I change to it. And then we can also go other Star Wars, and then there's a different sound. And again, I'm hopeful that it's actually playing for you guys. And again, this is because I zoomed in. Let me zoom out for just a sec so I can get to my normal controls. We can hear the retraction. We can hear the ignition. We can hear what the clash is like. The blast. And then swing is in there. So it's for the swing control. If you haven't tried it, it's as long as you hold it, it's going to do the swings over and over. When you let go, it stops. But that's the general idea. So for the prompt makers, let me see if there's any questions actually. I'm sorry if I missed earlier questions. I was having technical difficulty trying to catch up. Oh, hey, Meg Tooth, thanks for joining. Sorry for anybody I missed too. The technical difficulties threw me for a loop. Kindle Hall is on. Let's see. Cole, I think I said hi to Cole and Nick earlier, but just in case, let's see. Oh, this is for the font makers, but yeah, let's ask it, Nick. So these should show up. So this is, I've talked to a couple of font makers, and I'm going to leave this to them. And if any of them want to answer in the chat, feel free. A few of them have considered it they just haven't gotten around to it. Some of them haven't quite even tested OS6 yet, so they're not entirely familiar. A few of them haven't actually seen this library either, which was the reason for this video that kind of grew. I was trying to explain to the font makers my ideas, and some of them had watched the demo video and some hadn't. So I said, all right, let's try to get all the questions answered. But I figure if I'm going to have a live show, I might as well let everybody join in. So the numbering, so that's related to real clash. So in OS 6 with my prop file, if you enable real clash sound, you can order the clash sounds sequentially. So starting at 1 through, typically there's 14 or 16 clashes in a lot of the fonts, and have them go in progression so that your lightest or your shortest or your kind of whatever is representative of like the lightest clash on the saber would be like number 1, whereas the loudest, longest, or most bassy clash sound would be your last number 14 or 16 or whatever, and they're kind of ordered in between. I set most of my fonts up that way specifically. In a lot of cases, a lot of the font makers actually have all these different sounds. They just number them randomly. The nice thing, which is what I've been trying to explain, is that if you use the Clash font that's been ordered for Real Clash on a different OS or using a different prop, or even if you use that font and it works on like CFX or something, having the clashes ordered so that the lightest is the low number and the hardest is the high, and then it goes in between, it won't actually change anything for any other board or any other versions of the OS. So it's a change that can be made and not impact anything because the random is random. So almost all the other uses of clash sounds are randomly selected, at least how I understand it. Now, again, I'm not a CFX user, but I would expect that's how they run it. But if something is randomly chosen, then the randomization of numbers that are ordered sequentially or randomization of orders that are or of files that are randomly ordered is still random. But if you order them correctly and use the define with my prop, having them ordered sequentially will then allow them to work with real clash. So that was kind of the question. I still have some that I have to talk to, but I've done it for the ones that I've set up. But oh, Mountain Sabers is answering in. Let's get your answer to that question. Oops, so yeah, so Mountain Sabers is saying he would do it for new fonts, but obviously you can rearrange it. I had a video, and I know the audio on that video is terrible, and I have a new mic, and I'm hoping it sounds good to you guys. The audio wasn't great, but basically I just listened to the fonts and listen to each class sound, and then in my head, or actually on Scratchpad, I order them, and then I just rename the files. Let's see. Hey, Mr. Scorpion, I see you have a question. Let's see. Oh, oh, you mean for the options list? That is something I have on the backlog of stuff to come. That gets a little tricky. The reason, so, and what he's talking about is in the library, you'll notice that you have these style option capabilities. The idea, let me pull this off for a sec. And I don't know if you can read all this, but the idea is you can actually build a list of options, and then this is where you can actually use a single preset or a single style on multiple presets, either by copying the preset or by using ProffieOS Workbench, or if you just want to toggle it through Edo mode, and you can build them out. How they're grouped currently in the library is based on similarity. So there is a point where the optimization or the reduction of memory used crosses over, where if you have a lot of options that are not actually sharing similar segments of code grouped together, it actually ends up using more, not less memory. So that was the main reason that's not there. There is still, again, I'm only on right now. Phase 3 is getting the sound put in. If I were to break out everything that I have planned, I probably have 5 or 6 phases planned because I'm trying to do this in chunks where I can get stuff out quicker and get it tested. But I have a split blade builder coming. I have the dual phase and multi-phase builder blade builder coming. Those were carryovers from the OS5 library. They're going to get obviously a facelift and some new functionality to go with OS6. And then we're going to have, then I'll look at the ability to mix and match how you actually build style options. The thing will get to the point where the problem will be is like if you choose like an audio flicker and then mix it with like an unstable style or like a pulsing style, you may not actually get the memory savings that you would by grouping all the audio flicker styles together. So that's one of the reasons that it isn't there off the bat, but it doesn't mean I can't do it. It just was a little bit further down the list. All right, a bunch of questions popped in. Let's catch back up. Dun, dun. So Preon effect for oh, you created. I have to. So I would like to use some styles that people create. It's been something that people have asked me for since like probably the OS4 library. The problem becomes, and it doesn't mean I can't, is that the style, how the styles are assembled in a library is actually based on a bunch of scripts that I write in the back end that take all the pieces and let you combine them together. So when you go in and choose like here and go here and toggle here, all of that is actually JavaScript that's combining the different pieces of code. Plus, it's actually looking at a bunch of other variables that are in there based on what you're choosing, where you're choosing, etc. So in order to make any style that I didn't build fit, I almost have to completely deconstruct it and rebuild it. So if there's effects that you want specific, we can look at them. I'll probably have to rebuild them both for them to fit the syntax, but also one of the big things and one of the things I'm trying to really focus on with OS 6 with my styles is optimization of the style itself. So in a lot of cases, even the same exact style from OS 5, on top of getting all the edit mode and edit capabilities into it, I've actually reworked a lot of them so that they use up less memory on the board. In some cases, it's because we now have new function capabilities. All the new style modifiers, which I don't even know if everybody's actually familiar with all of them, that were built in as part of OS 6. It's something I worked on with Frederick, as well as just experience building these styles. As I'm adding these styles to the OS 6 library, I'm actually reworking how they're coded to make them fit more. So the idea being you can get more on the board, you can get more out of them. And in some cases, they're going to use less memory while they're running. Now, obviously, certain styles they're so complex, there's not a lot you can do to them. But I would say longer term, so probably not phase 3, but after that, if there was effects that you have that you wanted to get tied to specific fonts as we get them added, I can look at them. I probably will have to take them apart and reassemble them to get them to work properly, unless they're just straightforward, simple things. But in a lot of cases, pre-on effects, particularly, they're usually really, most of them are just compound TR concats. But there's a lot of optimization that came into transitions in OS 6 that I don't think everybody uses yet. So I would probably rework them. I try to get a match to what you're created, but I want to make it so that it both obviously works with the library, how it's set up, but then also optimize them for use on the OS itself, if that makes sense. I feel like I lost train of thought there. Let's catch back up. Yeah. Just catching up on the chats. Okay. So yeah, I mean the plugin that Frederick did, the 3.6 plugin, is a large part of optimization. There was a lot of memory savings both in that, and it also freed up some of the CPU usage. So that's in there. But then one of the things that as I was building for OS 6 and getting all the edit functionality in, adding that edit functionality actually opened up the ability for us to optimize the styles even further. And then again, there's a lot of new tools in the OS in the form of functions that you might have in the past, particularly again for prions and for more complex animations, you probably had multiple steps that you had to do to get that accomplished. Now between the style modifiers and all of the new functions, we can actually reduce even just the length of the code itself for the style and get the same effect, or in some cases actually get a little more out of the effect. But that's all part of jumping from, OS 6 is obviously the edit mode probably got the biggest banner. And then after that, obviously Real Clash, Battle Mode 2.0, the My Profile, obviously Track Player. There's a laundry list of stuff, but in that intro, tucked in there is style modifiers and a bunch of functions. And even though they're not flashy, they're what's going to open the door to a ton of new stuff that people just haven't figured out yet or been able to play with or aware is there yet. So all that stuff comes into play. Let's see. You mean, Jay Lorian, on my previewer, it was more for simplicity's purposes. So, and it's twofold. So, in order to simplify how the previewer works, I put in just accent swings. Just as a, again, right now it's 8 sounds essentially that I can put in there. It's not saying in the future we can't expand it. The other part of it is that the smooth swing is an algorithm that's based on motion. So if you just put, if I actually, obviously I'd have to translate, but if I took the smooth swing code and dropped it in here, you actually wouldn't hear anything because there's no actual motion to give it info. That means I'd have to rewrite parts of the smooth swing code to instead take user input. I have the swing capability here, but all this swing capability does is it just changes the value from 0 to max. It doesn't actually have the gradation that happens when you're moving your blade. So to try to represent it in this, particularly considering this is actually a really simplistic audio application, it would not do it justice. The other part of it is obviously then I add to the number of sound files that I have to store, and I'm hosting most of these sound files unless the font maker wants to host them. So I don't really, I wasn't trying to get into that kind of craziness. But it's kind of a combination. Longer term, the capability is, it's not that the capability is not there. It's just the time to get it to work right was going to be probably something that maybe this would evolve in the future. And there's another piece to audio that I haven't shown yet that might let that happen too. But for the start point, for the beginning, for this phase 3, it's the 8 sounds that I had listed for those font makers. So it's going to be your pre-on if you have it, your a single hum, a single blast, a single clash, a single lockup, a single in, a single out, and a single accent swing. Again, it's meant to just give a quick preview. And then we're obviously going to send the users to your actual font site where they can see your YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. But it's more of a limitation in this specific implementation, not to say we can't expand upon it in the future. Let's see. Different than the swing effect. I'm not sure I actually know that. Not sure what that question is. If you want to expand on that, actually, I can come back to that. I'm not catching up with. Hey, Max, let's see. I am trying to talk to all of them is the short answer. As of today, I only set up the samples that you heard from Mountain Sabers, and then Harry Solo Font sent me, and then a bunch of others are interested, and I think some of them are on here, like Jay DeLorean, and they're just either I was hoping to explain some stuff for them so they understand. My hope is to get as many font makers for Proffie as we can, but it's the fonts are theirs, so they are going to be making that decision. I'm not going to force a decision on anybody. I'm just, to me, it's a valuable tool, both for particularly for the user, because you're going to be able to get an idea of sounds before you buy them and match them with styles, but also for the font makers to get their sounds matched up with styles easier. And there's more capabilities coming. So it'll probably start out small. I did get interest from, maybe 7 or 8 of the font makers right off the bat. We're definitely into it. We just haven't been able to totally get everything lined up yet. Plus, it takes time for me to set each of these samples up. So I also told them going in that I was going to start small and do like a handful of fonts at a time, just because I have to build them in. I have to build the code that runs them, and then I have to test to make sure they all work as they're expected. And obviously, there's more font makers than myself, so that means I'm one person, and there's a couple of, say 12, 15 or so font makers, and if they all sent me, 10, 15, 20 fonts, all of a sudden I'm overwhelmed. So I'm limiting also how the batches that I'm doing them in. But as I get them built, they'll all be part of this. That's my hope is, I've extended the invitation to everybody that I know of. And if there's font makers who I haven't spoken with or who are unaware and you happen to chat with them, just have them reach out to me. I want to make this, my hope for this is long term, is that this is kind of like a good resource for people who have Proffieboard to be able to both get styles and fonts, and put it all together into their configs very easily. So anybody who makes anybody who's making Profi fonts is welcome to reach out to me now. Um, Obviously, in the world of fonts, I know there's competition. I know there's, unfortunately, people who pirate and stuff like that. So I'm not going to play police force. I'm going to go by what the community says. So if there's certain people who, you know, end up with a bad reputation or have issues or have questions about where they got sounds from, I'm going to obviously protect the integrity of the library and have to deal with that myself. But I'm not going to be an arbiter for any decisions. But I am going to make sure that I try to. This is supposed to be something to help people, and I obviously I want to make it helpful to everybody. So the best way to do that is let everybody put in what they need. But I also understand that there is, I don't know any specifics, but I know that there's time to time there's been some issues with some people who try to come in or try to say this is theirs and it's not. I'm not going to play games with that. If there's a question on something, I'm probably going to pull it from the library until it gets resolved. But I'm going to let that resolution happen either between whoever brought the dispute up or in the community itself. But the goal will be to get anybody who wants to list their fonts that is in good standing in here. Let's see. Yeah. And this is a very simple style. It looks better when I have the better styles on. Let me pull one of these, or what do we get? Let's get something with more activity for you guys. But yeah, being able to go in and just match up. I don't think there's a match on this one now. So we'll just go back to the page. I think I was running this one. Let me run a different one just so I'm not. I think you guys can. Again, I can't hear the sounds while this is showing, so I'm really hoping the sound is playing for you guys. Otherwise, I probably don't make a lot of sense right now. But yeah, the other part of this that I envision is to let this be for those people who are maybe unsure about Profi and unsure about what they're trying to get, almost be like a test drive where you can actually come in and see what styles and everything are in here that you can choose from and get an idea on what they're going to look like. Oops, is that not working for me? I might have a bug in my code. Oh, it's on. There's no pre-on. Okay. I'm gonna actually. That's a good segue for me. Let me use that. So I got sidetracked. I wanted to show the last piece of this, and this is not specific to font makers, but this is for all users, is this my font capability. And I showed this again in the preview, but this is the last piece of the puzzle. So say you already have a font and you want to see what styles to use with it. I've made it so that you can temporarily put this, again, it's only going to be the 8 primary sounds, and it's only one file of each, but you can actually pick files from your local drive. And where's my SD card? And I have to grab one that I know has a pre-on because some of these don't. Pre-on, but you can just choose your file and it's going to preload in, and then we'll get a hum. And this is using your local sounds, and your sounds aren't going anywhere. So just so people aren't afraid that like this is uploading to some place or you're sharing your sound files or your fonts with me, this is all temporary. It's based on your browser. It's only temporarily using that location. When you close this browser, actually, when you close this window, it's going to lose that location. So it's not, nothing's happening with the sounds that you're picking. They're not actually uploading anywhere. This is just for temporary use while you have this browser open. And I'm just grabbing these sounds here, but I can actually see what a particular style looks like with my specific sound that I already have on my machine. So I can see what this pre-on effect is going to look like. And the pre-on effects in particular, they auto time. So all the OS6 pre-on effects in the library auto time to the sound file itself. So if you have a shorter pre-on sound, it's going to be shorter. Now, this here is going to put the time in. So say you wanted to actually have the effect go a little longer or a little shorter, you can adjust it here. But the way the pre-on code is written, it's going to always time itself to the pre-on sound. And that's for OS6. But then you can ignition, have it on. I didn't add the other sounds, but you'll get your attraction. So you can actually load up your specific fonts and test them with styles as well. And then, so that's all part of this new sound capability. And again, we do 8, so you can put a accent swing, a blast, a lock, and a clash in there as well from your local locations, or go through and choose one of the existing ones that's in there. Let's see, let me catch back up with questions. Max, good question. Actually, I have to just finish a little bit of debugging. I actually bumped into a bug right before we went live that I got to find. And then it's a matter of when I can get, I wanted to get at least, a representation from any font maker who is interested on there. And then it'll grow over time just because of time, resources. But I would, my hope is that within, sometime in the coming months that I would have this ready. The functionality, except for a bug or two, is pretty much there. The next big piece is going to be getting the font makers sample set up, and also working with them to make sure I have the match font set up to their liking, have the naming and everything. Because I want to give respect and also properly represent their fonts. But I also want to make it universal. So, and the other piece of this that I don't know if I mentioned is the listings, and there's only a few in here now, but all the paid listings, they are going to be alphabetically listed, and the alphabetical order is going to be based on the character's name, if applicable, the film or franchise, if applicable, and then by the font maker's name. And the idea of doing it alphabetically is just so there's no, no perceived or no feeling of getting preference for anybody or anything like that. I want to give a equal, full representation of the fonts of anybody who's submitted them, so that users can see them all, can hear them all, can test them all, and make decisions on what they want based on what they found, so that they can see the styles, hear the fonts together, and make a decision on, okay, what works best with this style and what font works best, and then get a hold of that font very easily. But for me, the capability is probably going to be it's pretty much ready. A few little bugs here and there, and something might pop up in some beta testing. The next piece is getting, which is part of the reason for tonight, was answering the questions of font makers, helping them to understand so that they can make a decision. If anybody decides they just don't want to do it right now, I totally respect that. Those who do want to get involved, I'm hoping over the next couple weeks to get them at least get some samples of their stuff up, and then we'll grow on it. Again, it takes me a little bit of time for each font to get it built and tested, and also to work with the font maker on categorization, matching the styles. As Jay Lorian was asking, he actually has pre-on effects that he builds. So I would probably try to work with you on how to do it. I have to see them. I'm not. I don't often see other people's styles. Obviously, just making my own. So I'd have to also kind of take a look with you at what you're doing, and figure out how much would be involved to get them converted for the library. If it's a straightforward, simple thing, maybe it's not so bad. If it's a lot of time and energy, then I might have to put that back burner and come back at it. But it'll be in the near future, is my answer. Let's see. Converting OS5. Have you seen the Frederick's beta editor yet? That would be a good start point. You can put let me bring it up if you haven't seen it. So he's got the beta editor live, and I'm just gonna go real quick and throw super simple, which helps if I type right. Let's see. This is super easy. Why do my keyboard is slightly ajar? I'm hitting the wrong button. Submit that. That's a good one. So if you put and this was real fast, but if you put your style in, and then there's this Argify button. Let me zoom in. So this Argify, let me get that right here. If you click that, it's actually going to convert the colors into the RGB arguments, which are essentially, that's the edit mode capability for colors. So that would be your start point. Now, certain parts of edit mode, particularly most of the settings, so your positions, your speeds, your timings, what else? Lengths, that kind of stuff. Those individually, you'd have to swap the code out. I don't know that Frederick would ever be able to build an Argify version of that because it's very specific to the individual style. But as a start point, the editor will let you get the editing capability, the edit capabilities for colors at a very basic level. And now, if you have a style that has like a crazy amount of layers with a crazy amount of transitions happening on it, this is not going to be able to differentiate all that. In which case, you'll have to build them from kind of the ground up, which is essentially what I've had to do for the library. If you want to have the color editing, so that's the other part. Your OS 5.9 styles do run in OS 6, no problem. It's just if you want the editing, that's really the biggest factor. And then, like I mentioned earlier, there has been a lot of optimization. So some of those really big, long style codes, they can be rebuilt to be reduced in size, but you rebuild them. There's no shortcut for that. It's just, okay, I used to do a transition, a TR concat with step one, color one, step two, color two, step three, color three, step four, color four, and then finishing out transition. There's no automation of shortening that, but there are functions that can do it if you put them in place. So that would be kind of rebuilding. But that would be the easier way to get started on it. Uh, Catch up again. You guys are going through here. Uh, if he wanted to. Yeah, I know Brian does a lot with sounds. I actually don't know if he's made fonts. I haven't seen him list fonts, but if he does, I'm leaving the door open for anybody who makes Proffieboard fonts to get into here, as long as it's their font. Like if somebody comes to me and tries to post something that they took from somebody else or that isn't actually theirs, um, even if I don't know about it, somebody's going to tell me and it's going to get pulled down. But if somebody has a font that they've made, that they want to put into the library, I want to make it available through the library. That's basically what I'm doing. I'm not trying to be like a judge or anything like that, but I also like I put a lot of time into my library. I put a lot um, of effort into it. And over the course of my time in this hobby, I've tried to make a name for myself with a reputation. And that's all part of this. So if somebody were to come and try to, use something that they stole or something that they don't have the right to post, I'm going to have to obviously get it off of the editor or off the library, because I don't want to be associated with that. But other than that, if it's a legit font that somebody legit made for Proffieboard and they want to have it listed, they just have to reach out to me and we'll work through it. Um, let's see. And again, if there's any font makers that I haven't spoken to or that are unaware of this going on and you guys know them, let them know and just tell them to reach out to me. They can hit me up on the Crucible, they can hit me up through my channel, or they can reach out to me through Facebook, or the Patreon page. There's a lot of ways to get in touch with me and I'll catch them up. Some of the inner workings of how this is being done, I'm not going to make public because it's something that I've developed, and also because some of what we're doing with the font makers is between myself and them, and that's not. So that's why some of the discussions are going to happen direct between me and the font maker. But it's open to the font makers that want to be a part of it. Uh, Sound is going in and out on you guys. I'm sorry. I wonder if the battery on my mic is going. That would make sense. Let me plug this in just in case you guys can't hear me. All right. Hopefully this fixes the audio. I've been having some technical difficulties. So the my font in here with the Preon sound is automatic. So if I grab a Preon, and that's actually it's the style that makes it automatic, not the so the style for the Preon effect actually uses the wavelength function to auto time it. So it's timing itself based on how long this file is. This field here on the library, just so you can change the timings. If you, this actually existed in phase two, and it's a carryover, whereas this is actually doing it itself now. Um, let's see. There's the field autofill. Max, I'm not sure which field. I'll have to get that. Oh, when you upload. So when you upload, yes, when you upload a pre-on file, it's going to get you the timing right here. Um, do I have any others I can grab? I don't remember where else what other files. Maybe Seismic has one? Does. So yeah, so it changed, I'll zoom in. So it changed that timing. Oops, that's going to mess my layout up. So it changes the timing based on the actual file that is loaded up. So this will change
Seismic
how quick
charges.
that pre-on is. I'm trying to keep up with your comments. You guys are filling me up here. Let's see. Yeah, Mountain Sabers brought up. Yeah, so if you guys haven't seen the editor, Frederick's done a lot in here. You can actually, if you hover over the blade, he's made it so it'll animate. And then this also will, uh, if you have an effect for swing, it would apply based on how fast you're moving it, but it gives you this kind of cool 3D effect. Um, and then when you pull off of it, it's going to go back to the regular viewer. So Frederick's added a bunch of stuff. He's also added the argument strings and a bunch of other. So the editor's still in beta. If anybody's playing with it and anything acts up, just let Frederick know. I took a version of the code before that previewer was added. I have a different way of doing similar things. So if you haven't seen the phase two rollout, I have it so that if I do like a swing effect in here, grab one of these guys. So we'll do the bright swing. I'll do it in white. So if I go power, I don't have sound on anyway, so I'll turn that off. But I can actually do swing like this, or you can test what the various swing speeds are. So the scaled, until you get to a certain point, it actually doesn't apply the effect. But then once you start to get past that point, you'll see how it applies. So this lets you preview the swings in a different way. And then if you want to see what a different swing effect would look like, let's do like the audio flicker swing. So that's what that would look like. And you can change your swing color. So maybe we'll do like an orange as a swing. And then as I back the swing speed down, you'll see it'll go back to normal. So I've applied it in a different way because I wanted the visuals to be controllable. And then obviously we've got blade angle and speed, class strength, all those other things you can apply. The rollout of phase two has the videos on all those controls, but I do it slightly different. Like this style doesn't have a blade angle on it, but if I grab like the water blade, which responds to angle, let me turn the swing off actually though. I don't want to swing on that because it'll mess with the colors. Disable that. But the water blade, so right now it's kind of sitting still, but if you tip it up, you'll see the flow. So it shows it's tipping up. The flow goes this way. I tip it down. The flow goes the other way. And this previewer actually responds in real time. So as I slide this to being parallel, it'll slow. And then you can also just click through so you can see what's happening with this water blade based on the angle that it's at. And all the other effects come into play too. Like this has real clash, so your clash effect is going to be based on how hard the hit is. So that different hits do different effects for different times. So it just gives you that level of control. So these controls are a little different than how Frederick did his implementation. But his does have that really cool kind of 3D capability if you want to play with that. But this code is all based on him. So, and that's why I give him the copyright notice here. The previewer is from his editor. I've just modified it to work with the library. Let me catch back up. I think I went off on a tangent there. New ignition started to slow down at the tip. I know is people have been chasing that one. I haven't seen it successfully implemented where it's transferable. Brian had been playing with that even before OS 6 came out. But I don't think he ever made it transferable. I think it was just kind of like putting stuff together. It's probably an OS 7 capability. Um, if somebody's has one that they've put together, my guess is they probably used like a TR concat or maybe did some layering effects. But it's probably all hard code timed, so it probably can't auto time itself. The function would have to exist to be able to auto time it. I could be wrong, but I don't think I've seen that one successfully implemented yet. Yes, Nick. Split blade and dual multi-phase style builders is on the docket for after I get this piece done. The how I'm going to do them is actually going to expand, so that's part of the reason it's one of the later phases. It's got a lot of new capabilities coming, but yeah, it's definitely it's already on the list of stuff. I just have to get around to it. Uh, Oh, thanks, Sean. Yeah, I mean, my hope with, having particularly this previewer is to let people actually play around with what Profi can do before they make a decision. I know there's, a lot of options out there and a lot of different opinions on those options. Ultimately, um, if somebody's going to pick spend a lot of money on a Saber, to me, they should be happy with what they get, and what makes them happy is different for each person. So it's, Proffieboard, I think is the best solution, but that's my opinion. For other people, there's other boards that they like better. But for me, everything I can do to help people understand what Proffieboard's capable of and get kind of an idea of it and learn about it and use it, that's what I'm hoping to do and keep doing, going forward. Yeah. Blade style building a bit more. I could probably get post off in there. I haven't seen a lot of post offs. Um, my experience, but that wouldn't be. Uh, I'd have to. It would probably be something I do as maybe a next step because the post off is different than Preon in the OS, which means how I would have to handle it here would be different too. Um, the the making it work would be a little bit more work, but probably that one maybe we could get snuck in. I don't actually have a ton of post off effects even. I used to have more. I haven't moved them over. Um, the It would be it should be possible. Probably at a later date though. Let's see. No, I didn't miss all the questions, guys. I'm trying to get to them in some kind of semblance of. Let's see. Legends. I'm assuming you mean I've done a couple of my videos in my Vader costume, so I am a 501st Darth Vader. Um, I, I had a video with the voice, one of them, I forget which one. I haven't done it in a while. I've been so focused on the coding that I haven't actually even trooped or done anything with my costumes in a long time. So I think there's one out there, but it's probably old. Um, And actually, of late, I've been doing more Kylo Ren. So there's probably because I did the CRL for the Rise of Skywalker, so that was probably the more recent stuff. But again, a lot of the 501st costuming stuff I haven't done in probably a year because of all the coding I've been working on for OS 6. That's hmm, I don't know. The Saber videos get a lot more interest than me in a costume, um, at least in my experience. But in the future, I mean, I have all my gear. I just haven't suited up in a little bit. Dun, dun, dun. Cool. Oh, any more questions? Well, we're getting to that hour mark, so I'm probably going to be wrapping up shortly. Hopefully, particularly for the font makers, I didn't see a lot of questions. I'm hoping that the explanations were good. But if you guys have questions, you can just reach out to me. If you have some of the fonts you want to submit and you haven't reached out to me, just reach out to me. I'll give you the info I need to get them added. I think there's one more I didn't get a chance to add, and I forget who submitted it. But I'm hoping to populate this library with whatever you guys want to give to me in the next couple weeks and get it ready for launch. And then it'll kind of be a slow rollout. So we'll do a rollout of the what I've got available built as a beta. And then as you guys give me more stuff, I'll add to the library in kind of batch format. And then the hope is we eventually get as many fonts as want to be on there so that users can listen to them, test them out, preview them, and then ultimately get them from you guys. That's really the big thing is when somebody finds a font that they like that matches a style that they like, that they are able to click that link and quickly get to it. That's obviously going to be beneficial both to the user because they found the font, but also you guys who make fonts. They're coming to get them from you guys. So oh, Jay, let's see what we got. Swing, smooth swing effect on the uh, s- uh, swing and smooth swing would be the same for the style, unless you can explain that a little bit more. Um, the functionality of smooth swing is an algorithm that blends, and it blends. How it's blending may not transfer directly to a blade effect because the blade effect is going to use the real-time speed, um, but it's using it in because it's using it in real time, it's not actually aware of what the speed was before or after that point in time. So the smooth swing algorithm, and I didn't write the algorithm, so I might be butchering this explanation, but it's adjusting that high and low based on the change in the speeds as you're moving it to adjust the volume and the mix of those swing pairs with the hum. Swing effects, the visual part, is actually applying the exact speed at that exact point in time to the style. So it's not necessarily comparing where it was before or where it is after. It's actually in the moment. The blending that you kind of get in the smooth swing sound is not going to be a direct correlation to the effect. Now there are some functions that you can apply that'll kind of blend those two together, kind of like how I did the inertia effect. So like even on this blade style, if I am pointing up, the water's going to move this way. But if I apply a swing for a certain duration, so if I just hold this button and let it go, it's actually going to reverse course for a period of time and then it'll reapply gravity. That's one of the hyper responsive capabilities. So it's actually using multiple functions to apply both the speed that you swung, but also how quickly you accelerated, and then it's translating that to a duration of the effect. So it's possible in some way, but like trying to get a high-low effect is probably not possible with the current functions. You probably need a completely different function to get that accomplished. But I mean, there's a lot we can do. I guess I just need a little bit more of an idea of what you're looking to see. Uh, Yeah, thanks, Chet. Yeah, I mean, to me, even just a few of these fonts I haven't heard before. So even just testing them, I was like, oh, that's cool, and that kind of thing. So it's exposure, and it's helpful. Mhm. Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Mountain Sabers. And yes, I think I've got all of yours loaded up. For the font makers who have submitted, and you're one of them, when I get everything debugged, and everybody can hear this, it's fine. I'm going to send you guys test links for your fonts to see them in action. Just do it. Just it's for you guys. Just hold on to that link. I know you're probably going to get people say, "Hey, please just let me peek." The Because everything is still in development, I prefer to keep it until I'm 100% sure it's at least ready for beta testing. But I want you guys to get an idea too. So within the next week or so, I should have everything cleaned up. And like I have a couple of your sounds in there, Mountain Saber, so you'll probably get your own link to test that stuff out. And then the other font makers who did send me stuff, same thing. More so you guys can also help me fine tune it before I release it. So I want to make sure that I am representing the fonts you gave me how you guys would like to see them. So that's kind of the way that I want to go about it. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of early access. Sorry, the rest of you, but it'll be coming to the general public soon enough. But I do want to get some feedback from the font makers, obviously, before I before I try to represent what they've created for everyone. Let's see. I don't have one. Somebody could make one. The I didn't buy. I mean, again, I'm sorry that that video I made had terrible sound. The But it's pretty straightforward. I just listen to the font sounds, and when I hear a class sound that sounds like it's a softer sound, I just on a little scratch pad, I just said, okay, clash 10, and I just wrote the number one next to it, and then I would listen to like the next class sound and be like, oh, that's a loud one, and that's definitely gonna be a top one. And I just scratched them out on a pad, and then I went back and changed the file names. And that was, I mean, it's really, like I said, most of the fonts that have, it's 14 to 16 class sounds. You just listen to them and order them. I'm sure, hopefully, long term, the font makers will end up doing it themselves, but in the short term, it didn't take all that long. Uh, Oh, thanks, Mac. Yes, yeah, I do appreciate all my patrons, and I know guys are helping me out. Obviously, I've put a lot of time into all this stuff, and I do appreciate everybody who's able to become a patron. Um, and there's a lot more coming, but definitely the patrons have been helpful, particularly some of So, in order to get some of these capabilities in place, I actually did have to change my hosting for the website. So, those of you who saw I actually have a fet263.com domain. Prior, it was just an AWS bucket that I had. In order to get everything moved to work properly, particularly hosting sound files and all that stuff, I had to actually get a real hosting site, and I got realofficial.com. So that I used the Patreon account to do that. And obviously, ongoing maintenance and hosting and that kind of stuff is helpful there. So I do appreciate anybody who's able to become a patron and help me continue to put together the library, put together new styles, and also continue to work on my prop file and other stuff for the ProffieOS. So thanks for bringing it up, Max. Good segue for me. Let me see. Uh, Daddy Easy. What do we got? So if you have um if you mean you have just open source fonts that you make, I do have the free font section, and right now it's only populated via the fonts that come with ProffieOS. But I do have category. So the categories are the free or open source. Those would be ones that have obviously no purchase. They're open source, so they're general public. So I can put them in, and then the matched is part of the paid program. So the paid fonts, obviously, people have to buy them. So matching for those is done as part of that program. And then my font is just locally hosted. But if somebody's made an open source font, and I think there's a couple that are floating around out there. Again, I'm not familiar with every font maker and every font ever made. You know, I obviously just, there's way more going on in the community than I can follow everything. But if somebody has some open source, meaning that they're, and that has to fall into the real realm of open source. It can't be a font that you got pieces from somebody else and then just made a font that you're giving to people. It has to actually fall under the general use open source license, meaning that you have the right to distribute the sounds that you're providing, that you created them. If you have more questions about that in relation to both Proffie and just general open source, I would definitely suggest you talk to Frederick. But if it's true open source, if it's been deemed open source and you have sound fonts that you'd like to get previewed, we can certainly look at it. But it does have to obviously meet that threshold. I'm not going to have somebody take sounds from other places that they don't have the right to share and try to share them through here. So in that, particularly in that realm of open source, it does have to actually meet open source. If it's a paid font, I'm giving a little bit of benefit of the doubt that if you're selling a font, you have the right to do so. If it comes back either through the community itself or through other channels that isn't actually correct, I will obviously talk to you, but I will take that font down. I'm not going to let this tool and this, you know, what I'm trying to do here become a way for people to kind of put stuff up that they shouldn't, or try to, you know, share stuff that they don't have the right to share. So I'm trying to be very mindful of that, but I'm also I'm trying to be trustful of what people are going to give to me. But I will obviously do some due diligence if I have questions, and try to make sure that everything is on the up and up. Let me see. Hey, Space Window, thanks for joining. I'm probably signing out shortly, but I appreciate you guys coming in. Yeah, it's probably super old. I'd have to, it's been a long time. I'd have to let you know. It also is entirely possible that they're actually not public anymore because they are so old. So I'll have to look. It's been a long time. Let's see. So cool. Yeah, thanks, Max. Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna wrap up. Again, any font makers, and you guys particularly, you guys might know more font makers than I even know. If you come across somebody who's doing Proffie fonts and you didn't see you haven't seen any, you didn't see them in the chat, although some of them told me they couldn't come, or you haven't seen that, or they maybe haven't seen any of the posts that I've been putting up, just ask them to get in touch with me if they're interested. If they're not interested, it's no problem. You know, and also I kind of expected that maybe there'll be kind of a starting point where there'll be a few early adopters, like the ones who've already been working with me. And then as we kind of move this out and as it gets used and people see the value of it, that maybe more font makers will join in. So I understand that as well. I'm trying to make something helpful to everybody, but it's going to be basically up to the font makers to make that decision. And then also I have to work with them to get this stuff added. Reaver's Arsenal, Max. I don't believe so. I'm not. A lot of these people have reached out to me with their real names too, so, and I'm not always able to tie a name to a font maker. There's so many people, it's very hard to keep track, but I would just, they don't sound familiar, so if you want to have them reach out to me, go ahead. Let's see. Cool. Well, thanks everybody, and hopefully I didn't actually answer a lot of questions, but I'm hoping I showed enough that you guys understood it. as I get this ready to go, phase 3 will be fully announced once it's available for you guys to do the beta testing. Like I said, in the interim, there'll be some testing with me and the font makers to make sure everything's on the, working out as expected. But this will be, I'm hopeful, in a couple weeks. I do have, depending on how many font makers send me fonts, I do have a good amount of work in front of me to get them added. But I'm hopeful that the end result is helpful to the users, helpful to the font makers, and just really just helps everybody in the community, get more out of their savers. So thanks everyone for joining. Any questions that I missed, any questions that you might have, shoot them off to me, either YouTube channel or Facebook, Crucible, or Patreon. Thanks everyone, and have a great night.